In this lesson, we're going to have a look at the final sling chair model and unwrap geometry. So we're just going to zoom in and take a look at these. These have all been turbo smoothed and unwrapped. So as you can see from the techniques we looked at in the last lesson, if we move these, we've put holes through everything. What I've actually done is, rather than creating all separate pieces of geometry, I've used the symmetry modifier. If I go down here and isolate it, I've used the symmetry modifier, put the pivot point to the center of the chair, and that allows me then to just symmetry it over. And I've put an instance turbo smooth on all of the models, so we can control that with one. A few little spots that we want to take a look at are these two pieces of geometry. We mentioned earlier about how we can use the same technique for creating holes to create like a bar coming out of the end. Exactly the same process, geometry, putting edge loops in to create tight chamfers, and then we just symmetry it in the middle, symmetry in the middle, stick the turbo smooth on, and there you go. You have a nice sharp edge and a perfectly cylindrical object protruding from a fairly rectangular shape. If we turn the turbo smooth off on these and go into the front view, it is just a basic case of grabbing verts and moving them into the position you want until it looks right with the turbo smooth. It's as simple as that. It's just time consuming, so there's no use going over it in the video. It just takes up too much time. But I'm sure from the reference images you'll be able to create a similar thing yourself, and we'll both be at a similar stage right now. For the unwraps, I'm not going to go through that, as we've been through it on two different styles of model, just to show two different ways. This is pretty simple as the wooden beams, which is just common sense where edges need to be. So with this central beam, you need a seam around the edge, a seam around the edge, and then one seam across the middle, sticking to that base theory of looking at everything like a cylinder. And these just have been split because they're chamfered and they're turbo smooth, and the highlights that are going to pick up, you're not actually going to see where the texture comes together on the edges. So I've just left that stitched, or seams, I've just left the seams on the edge as it is, flattened it out. We can have a quick look in the UV editor just to see. And yeah, I know just from the texture of the wood that I want to use, I don't need to keep it all within this little box. That's just only if you want to render out a UVW template, which we don't need for this. We're just using a texture. We're not painting anything in Photoshop. So that's fine the way it is. So we have a fully unwrapped model, turbo smooth's working, and we've also put these little screws in, which little cap head screws, which I believe I've symmetried as well, or just copied and made into one editable poly by the looks of it. So if we take the turbo smooth off, we started with an n-gon to create a 6-sided hexagon, and then from there you can extrude. If you can imagine that being one piece, you can extrude out from the edges, and you can just put edge loops in where you need it to create sharp edges to keep the hexagon, and then on the outside it'll smooth it into a curve as normal. And we just made it so it's got more of a sharper chamfered edge on it, which is more true to life. So what we want to do now is export this to go into Marvelous Designer to make some fabric. The fabric hangs on over this little beam and over this little beam, so we only need this piece here and this piece here. There's no point in overloading it with geometry because it can be a bit temperamental. So if we hide these, we'll just put the turbo smooth to 2. Well, actually we just need it to 1, doesn't need to be on anything really, but we'll just keep it like that. And then if we convert this to an editable poly, and then just attach this piece of geometry too. Just created one piece of geometry, and we need to file, export selected, and export selected as an OBJ. We'll go to where we need to be, 3D model furniture swing chair, Marvelous Designer. We'll save it out as frame for Marvelous Designer. We'll replace what's already there. Obviously I've tried this one before. We'll export, and that is done. And now in the next lesson we'll look at importing the OBJ into Marvelous Designer and creating some fabrics.